name Arlan Asmarulloh. I am a student of English Education Study Program in University of Maritim Raja Ali Haji. Today I will explain you about my scripty. The title is The Correlations Between Students' Reading Attitude and Students' Reading Comprehension of 11th grade students of SMKS Hidayatullah Batam in the academic year 2020 until 2021. Alright, the Honorable Lecturer, Ma'am Elsa. The first, Chapter 1. Di Chapter 1 ada, the first is background of the research. Next, identifications of the research. Limitations of the research. Formulations of the research. Objective of the research and significance of the research. And the Chapter 2, I will explain you about theory description, reading comprehension, and reading attitude. Next, I will explain you about review of related research, theoretical framework, and hypothesis. And the last chapter, Chapter 3, I will explain you about research method, place and time of the research, variable of the research, population, sample, and sampling technique, technique of collecting data, technique of analyzing data, statistical hypothesis. Okay, next, the first is Chapter 1, background of the research. The first, English is very important, especially in the field of education. English has 4 basic skills that students must understand. Reading comprehension is an activity to broaden understanding of the meaning of a text, which is then translated by students for their own language. An aspect of reading comprehension. There are 2 kinds of reading. There are several things that make students experience challenge in understanding the reading text. There are several factors that affect reading comprehension. Reading attitude in action taken by a reader when responding to a reading material. The characteristics of reading attitude. The components of reading attitude. Assumption, reading attitude, correlation with reading comprehension. And next, alright, this identification of the research. First, to be able to find out various kinds of information that come from outside our own country, students need to study English as foreign language. 2, some of students have low reading of comprehension. 3, reading attitude could be one factor influencing reading comprehension. 4, students are not motivated in doing reading activities. And the last, students tend to avoid reading activities. Alright, like the first is limitations of the research. Focus on knowing the correlation between students, reading attitude, and students. Right. Reading comprehension of 11th grade students of SMKS Hidayatullah Batam. And formulation of the research. Is there any significant correlation between students, reading attitude, and students? Reading comprehensions of 11th grade students of SMKS Hidayatullah Batam. Right. Next, objective of the research. To find out whether there is a significant correlation between students' reading attitude and students' reading comprehension of 11th grade students of SMKS Hidayatullah Batam. Next, significance of the research. The first, of course, for teachers. And next, for students. And the last, for other researchers. Chapter 2. Theory description. Seperti yang saya katakan di awal tadi, ada dua, yaitu reading comprehensions and reading attitude. Kemudian, review of related research, theoretical framework, hypothesis. Theory description, reading comprehension, definition of reading comprehension, macro and micro reading comprehension, types of reading text, principle of teaching reading, assessment of reading comprehension. Definitions of reading comprehension. Woolley, 2011, 15 in Kocharustan, 2019, Woolley, 2011, 15 in Kocharustan, 2016, 676. Reading comprehension is a method used to extract meaning from reading passage. Itu yang dikatakan oleh Willy dan Kocharustan. And the last, Fardo saying in years 24, in Arjuna and Batman 2070, 545. Reading comprehension as the arrangement of the meaning process. Next. Now 2002, 11 and Mimis 2019 and 650. Activities carried out to interpret the reading text relationship that involve the other's language as a separate as outline in writing are called reading comprehension. And the last, Structure and Augustan, 1987-43, in Memis, 2019, 650. Activity to interpret and understand writing text or reading text information by capturing information, expressions, and thoughts based on students' knowledge with confidence. Macro and micro reading comprehension, Brown 2004, 187 until 188. Micro skills and macro skills. Jadi yang mikro lebih cenderung lebih kecil ketimbang makro yang lebih stabil. Menurut Brown. Types of reading text. Academic reading, job related, personal reading, principle of teaching reading. The first, reading is not a passive skill. Harmer 2001, 70 until 71. Students need to be engaged with what they are reading. Students should be encouraged to respond to the content of a reading text, not just to the language. Prediction is a major factor in reading. Match the text to the topic. Good teacher exploits reading text to the full. Assessment of reading comprehension. Types of reading text. Brown. Perceptive reading, selective reading, interactive reading, and extensive reading. Indicators of reading comprehension. Brown 2004, 2006. Main idea. Expressions or idioms or phrase in context. Inference implied detail. Grammatical features. Details including facts not written. Supporting ideas and vocabulary in context. Theory description. Reading attitude. Definition of reading attitude. Assessment of reading attitude. And the last, classification of reading attitude. Alright, definition of reading attitude. In Soliba, at all, reading attitude is a reaction made by a reader when responding to an object and reading idea that is being carried out. Alright, saya rasa ini kita bisa next. Okay, classification of reading attitude. The first is positive attitude, of course, and negative attitude. Dua hal yang tidak bisa dipisahkan. Assessment of reading attitude, affective, cognitive, and behavior. Review of related research. Fibriani Indah Widyasari 2016, the correlation among reading attitude, interpersonal intelligence, and reading comprehension in the students of English Education Study Program of Widya Dharma University of Unwida or Unwida. Mustafa Kochalsan 2016, an exploratory study of the relationship between reading comprehension, competence, reading attitude, and the fitness of mental imagery among Turkish fourth grade students. Okay, next. Hypothesis. And the last chapter 3. Okay. Research method. Quantitative correlations research. Next. Place and time of the research. SMKS Hidayatullah Batam, March 2021. Variables of the research. Independent reading attitude, dependent reading comprehension, and population, sample and sampling technique. Population, 11 grade students of SMKS Hidayatullah Batam, sample 24 students. Sampling technique, cluster random sampling. Technique of collecting data. The first instrument, two testing instrument, technique of analyzing data, normality test, hypothesis testing, and the last statistical hypothesis. I think that's all for our scripty. Thank you for my lecturer, Ma'am Elsa. I think that's all for me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.